Hey folks, and welcome to Subjective Thoughts. And our graphic novel for today is Hellboy, The Midnight Circus by Dark Horse Books. Now there is attempted murder, demons, hallucinations, and more demons. So if you are in any way squeamish, you have been warned. Also, spoilers. Alright, here's our team. Mike Mandola wrote this story. I've never heard of Mr. Duncan there. I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. But I'm very impressed with his art. Good stuff. Very pretty. I will say, I think Mike Mandola might have drawn some of the art in here. As it looks very much like his style. Although it's possible Mr. Duncan maybe just drew similar to his style. I think so, because it just it looked so much alike, I mean. And of course there's Dave Stewart, who always colors. And that's it, don't know the rest. Okay, so this is one I've never heard of. This is also another one from the AOK I got from Mr. Bill. Finally got around to reading this. It's a story about a young Hellboy. In his early years with the BPRD. There you can see him there on the cover. This is a really cool cover. The cover is definitely by Mike Mandola. This is one of those stories. So our story begins in Firefield, Connecticut, where the BPRD headquarters are. And it's nighttime. The professor is in his office. And another member of the BPRD, one that's actually been there the day they've met Hellboy. You know, when Rasputin summoned him. And he ended up where they were. The professor and the entire team during the Second World War. So this gentleman thinks that Hellboy is a threat to them and they should do something, but the professor doesn't agree. But before we hear their conversation, we see that Hellboy is sneaking out of his room. And he passes the professor's office. He doesn't stay to listen, but he peeks inside and then runs off. Although perhaps he heard some of it. Yes, and this man asked the professor just read a passage in this book again. And later on, that passage is read to us. And later, when I flip through, I'll read some of it. Yes, it's about the one that'll bring the end. And he's referring to Hellboy, of course. Hellboy has jumped down and left the premise of the BPRD. We see a flashback to earlier that day. He's in the BPRD canteen, or were they eating? Here's some noise, it's phones. Eating, and he's there with, the two gentlemen who are currently babysitting him. He's eating pancakes, of course. It's like Hellboy really loved pancakes when he was young. Anyway, they're talking. One of the men tells the other a story about another story, how he got a date with some new girl from accounting or something. And Hellboy's like, well, yeah. And then the mentor told him, you're a bit too young for this. And Hellboy also steals a cigarette and a match from one of them. So yeah, now we see him. Now back to it. We see him outside. He lights the match against his stone hand, and he's about to light the cigarette when he hears a drum noise, the sound of a drum. And then he sees that a clown beating a drum and a little dog with a clown hat, what they have around the neck, are walking. So Hellboy drops the match and starts going after them. He follows them and he sees that the clown is hanging some sort of a poster with a nail. As soon as the clown and man go on, he goes up to the poster and sees a poster for a circus. He's like, oh, and he runs after them. He's so excited he drops a cigarette. So he runs, and he goes over a wall, and we see this huge circus. Very huge. That is also a really huge circus tent. I'll show you later. It's amazing. It's not like the usual one you see where, it's kind of like a triangle. Yeah, it goes like a triangle and then down. This is different. Very cool. And that's where the art changes as well. So Hellboy's wandering around. He sees animals in cages. Then he approaches that circus tent, and he's peeking inside. And we see the clown and the dog again. The man is Vasya. The man is reciting something, and then more clowns appear, and I think Chinese men, small Chinese men, perhaps dwarves. And they're all going around, and then, I guess the ringleader comes out, and he's this big demon, and everything starts to go on fire, and we see, I guess, sort of a girl on an elephant. And Hellboy's looking at all this, like, whoa. And then the girl on the elephant the young lady, looks down at him and smiles, and Hellboy stumbles back, and he's out of the circus tent. And he continues walking there. And I think that comes a bit later. So then he keeps going through the circus, and he goes to this one tent that's clearly for older gentlemen. It's got, lust, desire. And then a demon-looking lady, peeks out and says, come on in. We're smiling like, oh, okay. But before he can, someone puts a hand on his shoulder, and it's, I guess, the circus master, or the owner. And he's like, that's for the older boys. No, he says, what are you doing? I was like, but she said, and the circus master's like, I'm sure she did, but come on, that's for the older boys. And then Hellboy starts walking with him, while the demon lady looks so like, at them. So he tells him, what are you doing here? It's so late, where are your parents? And Hellboy tells him, I don't have any parents. And he says, well, you must have someone who takes care of you. And he says, and Hellboy answers, the professor. And the circus master said, well, he's going to be worried about you. And, you should go home. Then, Hellboy says, I should go home. And they keep going, but, isn't there something you'd like to see? And then they're in front of another tent, and there's all these posters. And Hellboy approaches one poster that has Pinocchio on it. Well, it doesn't say Pinocchio, but it's the wooden boy. And then he asks, oh, Pinocchio. And the circus master says, yes. Like, did you see the moving picture? I think this is the, what year is this? I think it's either 47 or something, I believe. Maybe 48. Is that around the time that Disney Pinocchio came out? I don't know. But Hellboy says, no, I read the book. And the circus master, well, aren't you a clever boy? And then we see a flashback to Hellboy in his room. There's somewhere else, I think. Where was it? It was in Mexico, I think. Basically, Hellboy's in a different base. And there's this young lady, Margaret, who he's telling about Lobster Johnson's adventures. Although he just calls him the Lobster then, and he's dressed differently than what we see nowadays. And, clearly Margaret's already tired about hearing about Lobster Johnson, or the Lobster. As Hellboy's telling her how the lobster's fighting Frankenstein Nazi clones. Oh, he's so cute and excited. And she grabs him and is like, okay, Peanut, I'm so happy you learned how to read. She's dragging him through the base. But I think it's time we got you a proper book. Because he's been reading comics only so far. And she drags him and someone's like, oh, hello, Hellboy. And salutes him. So she drags him into the library and picks out a book for him. And it's Pinocchio. He reads it wrong the first time. And Margaret tells him, well, it's Italian. Hellboy asks, well, how do I read it? I don't know how to read Italian. Margaret says, don't worry, it's in English. Now you start reading now while I go check on your dinner. And then Margaret peeks back inside. Hellboy's reading. He's like, what the hell's this? A story of Pinocchio. And Hellboy asks her about the professor. It's not somewhere, when he'll be back. She says, not, how long he'll be gone, sorry. She said not long, a few days. And he says, and Hellboy asks, he's nowhere dangerous, is he? And Margaret says, no, of course not. I'm not sure if she was lying there or not. Kind of felt like she was. Not telling him that he was in danger. Well, anyway, we go back to Hellboy. He walks inside the tent with the circus master. And then we start to see fish. They keep talking about Pinocchio, about, what Pinocchio wanted. Pinocchio wanted to be a real boy. And then the circus master says Pinocchio's ambitions were too small. Or too boring, something like that. Sorry, I don't remember word for word. Then we see the fish, like what happened to Pinocchio. And Hellboy tells him, well, he was turned into a donkey and then sold into the circus, and people made fun of him and were mean to him. The circus masters, well, that's wrong, isn't it? And that's sad. And Hellboy's like, yeah, it was very mean. And we see a whale among the fish. He starts swallowing everything up, and Hellboy gets swollen as well. And then he's inside the belly of the whale. And suddenly Hellboy looks, and on a boat there, the professor's lying. And he looks very, his hair's grown, he's missing a shoe. Looks like he's been on a long travel. Hellboy, where have you been, my boy? And around, while this is happening, the professor, because he started reading the book that the other guy told him. But this is already after. He goes into Hellboy's room. Hellboy stuffed some pillows to make it look like he was sleeping. And we see that Hellboy has a dog. Dog's on the floor chewing a bone. Professor pulls off the blankets, and there's nothing there. And he says, "Oh my boy, what have you done?" We're back with Hellboy. He goes to the professor, the cries, and I'm sorry, Professor, I didn't mean to run away. And the more he talks to the professor, the older the professor gets. His hair gets more gray, he looks more withered. And he says, "Oh, I'm so cold." And I was like, "I had a match, Professor, but I lost it. I'm sorry." And then the circus master appears behind him and says, "You don't need a match. You can light a fire with just one word." And then Hellboy gets a vision, and we have the same text read in the background again about meeting this entity that will destroy the world. And Hellboy sees the world burning in front of him, and he's scared, and he runs off. We see him running through the water, the fish, and he's out of the back to reality, if you'd like. And as he runs, he sees on the side pictures of himself, and he sees a picture of himself older, as a grown man or a grown demon already. And then that really scares him, and he runs out, and he starts to run away. And then we see the circus master and that girl that was the young lady that was on the elephant. She's telling him, "See, I told you it wouldn't work." Now, the circus master and this girl, they're Hellboy's family. The circus master is actually his uncle that we meet also in Hellboy in Hell. That's his uncle. And that young lady is, Hellboy's cousin. Because she also calls the uncle her uncle. So this whole thing was to try to get Hellboy back to them. To convince him to use his powers, to join them. And she tells him, I forgot her name. I'll leave it here on screen. But she tells him, "You see that this didn't work." And the uncle says, "Well, he's still young. He'll understand when he grows up." Well, granted, sir, if he doesn't accept it now, I don't think he'll accept it as an adult. And we, of course, know that he won't. You see that's her there. I don't know if you can see that. I'll show it later. But yes, she sells him. Sorry, something fell. She tells him, "You should kill him now while he's still young." And he responds, "No one touches the boy. Leave him be." Albert starts running through how he came, and we see that some of the cages are open. Now, while all this is happening, the professor has already, rolls up everyone that was in the BPRD. Okay, let's go look for Hellboy. Hellboy, they searched all over the facility. He's not there, so they're going outside yelling for Hellboy. Going all over. And Hellboy sees, suddenly, as he goes, you see two cages opened. And then up top he sees the monkeys, and they're all yelling Hellboy. And simultaneously we see the professor and his men looking for him. So I don't know if this is, I think this is probably the magic his uncle uses, or sort of hallucination, and perhaps they're starting to intertwine. Perhaps those, the monkeys actually try to attack him. As the monkeys begin to attack him, they want to kill him. But Hellboy fights them off. And then he's shoved back, and there's a lion that comes out. I was like, son of a... like he does when he's an adult. He never finishes, just son of a... Never says the bitch part. Hellboy... And the lion says, "That's no way for a young boy to talk." And Hellboy dashes and runs away. The lion starts going after him, especially if it's the last thing he'll ever say. But before he can really go after him, he's grabbed in the back by his mane by Hellboy's uncle. The uncle pushes him back. He said, "What are you doing? I said the boy is not to be harmed." And then the monkeys and the lion, they start going back to their demon form. And the lion, I think might be a demon lady, perhaps, says, "I'm master, but she said..." And then Hellboy's uncle's like, "She said?" Like, "Master, please forgive me." And Hellboy's uncle says, "Go." Hellboy keeps running, and he meets these two hobos that are sitting near the train tracks, eating. And he's like, "You gotta help me." One of them's, "What's the rush, Sonny?" Now, while this is happening, the other BPRD agents are walking. One of them starts to recall how... Yeah, as they go, they also reach the same wall that Hellboy passed through. And the agent said, maybe he went through here. And the professor said, do you think he would go through there? And the man answers, well, he is a kid, isn't he? Kids love rusty junk. And the elder agent, at least the eldest there, was actually the one that's supposed to be on the night shift, says, when I was young, our parents told us to stay away from here. Back in the early 20s, I think during, they said, the Depression era, this was the hobo jungle. And hobos lived here. And people didn't complain too much because it was far enough from the town. But then when kids started to go missing, they went there. And apparently there was these 2 child murderers. And they hung them. But they say their spirits still wandered the place. So the 2 men Hellboy has come across are those 2 killers. Well, their spirits, I should say. And then they talked out, well, come on, what's the rush? Why don't you stay with us? Got a trick to show you. And he pulls out a noose. And Hellboy sees one of them's like a cat, and the other's like a fox. Because they're shadows. So Hellboy starts running away from them. They chase him. The one with the noose says, come on, I gotta show you a trick. Ugh. But they unfortunately managed to grab him. They already put the noose around his head and start pulling him. And we can see that the demon lady is looking from behind the tree. But before they can do anything, all the clowns suddenly appear. Hellboy falls back to the ground. And I guess the 2 spirits were taken by the clowns and the whole circus. And, we see the uncle appears, and he says, I told you he is to be left alone. And that's the niece. Hellboy also disappears. I guess he reappears again in the normal world. And I think he was probably taken to sort of like a different realm for this. I tried to explain how he saw the circus, but they didn't see it. And the art change as well. Good idea there. He said, I told you he used to be left alone. And she said, I'm sorry, Uncle, but he is a danger. And then he uses his snake staff and throws her a bit off. And he says, as long as I live, you shall not harm him. And then he disappears, and she's there lying, and she says, for as long as you live, Uncle. Then, back in the real realm, with Hellboy, they finally find him. He's laying on the ground. And we found him. One of the agents is, lifted him up from behind. It's, you're okay, kid. As Hellboy still thinks he's about to be strangled. About to be hung. You're okay, and the professor approaches him and is like, Hellboy. And Hellboy says that they wanted to kill me, a fox and a cat. And the professor looks at him. They wanted to kill you? They could never do that. And Hellboy says, well, maybe it was just a dream. And then the professor holds him in his arms. It's so cute. And Hellboy wraps his tail around his waist. Oh, it's such a cute scene. And it's a whole big panel. We see the uncle, menacingly above with the snake. The professor is holding Hellboy. Like, nothing will happen to you, my boy. I will protect you. It's all right now. The agent's in the back smoking, and yay, we found him. And then there's a little end picture where the clown and the doggy run forward. Oh yeah, also, as they're going through to get to Hellboy, to find him, The elder agent finds like an old poster of the demon lady in her circus form, shall we say. And that's it. That's where our story ended. Right, let's get to the art first. Oops. This thing always falls. One moment. There we go. I can show you a bit of this because it's not new. Oh, check that out. I think I kind of missed this the first time. It's Hellboy on the matches. Look, isn't he precious? Of course, I won't show you all of it, but I can show quite a bit, I think. Alright, you see that's Hellboy sneaking out of his room. There's that older agent I was talking about. There's the professor with that man. Ah, Malcolm, right, his name was Malcolm. See Hellboy jumping. Okay, and there we are. Malcolm's leaving. Hellboy's sneaking out. Ah, there's that book he wants him to read from, you see? Visions and Revelations. Also, I don't know what this weird stain is. Do you see that? Like this. I'm not sure if this is on purposefully there or what. Doesn't look like it is, does it? But then there's no damage on the other page, so I'm very confused. Weird. Right. Oops, sorry. Right, we have Revelations. There we go. I saw a city, silent as a tomb, barren as dry bones, and the angel said, "This is desolation." And I went down into it, and the only living thing there was the creature. In most ways, it had the shape and character of a man, and was not terrible to look upon. But then I saw it, in its right hand it held the key to the bottomless pit. Let's see, there's Hellboy about to smoke his perhaps first cigar. First cigarette of many. You see, there's a stealing the cigarette. Oh yeah, I mean, poor Hellboy, he's, you know. It's the only kid there, obviously. You see, there's the doggy and the clown. Ah, there's the poster, and there's the lady. Oh yeah, I think Hellboy didn't even get to fully smoke that. Just lit it up. Alright, and that's sort of the art moves. Look at that. That is awesome. You see, there's the change, and whoop. Ah, yeah, you can even see, like, here's the difference. This is the one art style, and this is in the other, symbolizing him moving between the realms, perhaps. You see, that's what I meant. I've never seen a tent like this before. In that shape on top, I mean. So there you see lions, maybe is a two-headed lady there. Okay, and then it continues. Ye spirits of the unbound universe. Ah, oh wait, this is the... I think this is the recitement of what that clown was saying. And there we have, there's our ringleader. You see? The clowns, the Chinese men. This art style is fantastic. So pretty. Look at that. You see, that's Hellboy's cousin right there. Hellboy's drooling. And there she is again, but in her demon form. And there's his uncle. And there's Margaret. You see, that's how the lobster used to dress. Because he looks different now. If you hear some talking, that's my grandma in the background. See, he's reading Pinocchio for the first time. I didn't realize Geppetto had a wig. Oh yes, there we go. You see, they're looking for him. Oh yeah, it was simultaneous to him seeing the fish, right? My mistake there. You see? There's Hellboy with the professor. Like in the story, because in Pinocchio, the professor Geppetto goes and looks for Pinocchio. See? And he's like, tell her, yeah, you don't need a match, you can light it with a word. And then you see? And it says, I saw in its right hand, it held the key to the bottomless pit. And I saw a great fire come out of it, out of the depths of hell, and roar across the whole face of the earth. And after that, only darkness. And the far-off lamentation of angels in heaven, weeping for the fall of men. And there we go. I see that. Hellboy's there. Look at that. That is an awesome image. Look how they drew him. You see, he's with the crown that scares him. There they are. Oh yeah, and she said, you see, I told you it wouldn't work. How well it looks fucking cool there. I wish there was a full image of that. Okay. And you see, that's where that's the uncle, and that's the cousin. There are the two child murderers. You see, it's a fox, and that was kind of like a cat. Maybe that's what their spirits were later on, something like that. And last page. Oh, there she says, so long as you're alive, uncle, so long as you live. She's implying, oh, I might kill you. Oh, you see, there he is with the snake, staff, and the... Oh, look, the professor's holding Hellboy. I love this. See, I've actually seen, on Google, I've seen this image. I never knew what comic it was from. Let's see, they're all, yay, we found him. Oh, look how sweet that is. And the end. There's the doggy. Yeah, as you can see, that art style is fantastic. I mean, that's some beautiful stuff. And it works very well with these kinds of stories. I love it. I'll look up more of this gentleman's art later. Well, that's some pretty stuff. Alright, so that was the art. Of course, Manila cover. And the story was really fun as well. It's interesting to see that Hellboy's uncle tried to get him back to their side. What I find interesting is that he never tried to just take Hellboy back after he was first sent. Now, granted, perhaps he wasn't able to, but you think he'd go in there quickly while Hellboy was still growing? Because he was a baby when Rasputin performed the ritual and sent him to our world. So I find it interesting that he didn't attempt it already when he was a baby. I mean, now that he's older, he'd still want him to come willingly, probably. So he would use his powers. Yeah, it's a nice little story into Hellboy's childhood. You see how he grew up in the BPRD. I might have learned how he started his smoking as well. Yeah, I see his relationship with the professor. Because the professor was essentially Hellboy's dad. You know, he raised him like a son. Hellboy really loved him. Makes the Seed of Destruction end even more tragic. Especially with how the professor's life ended. The more you see of these stories, the more tragic it becomes. But I guess there's something also comforting in knowing Hellboy had many memories with the professor. Because he went with him on missions and researches. So at least he had all those memories from him. But still, or Hellboy. It was funny because he said, I'll never run away again. But in the future, Hellboy does leave the BPRD. And I'm very understandable. I think the main thing there for him was the professor. Hey, yeah, nice look into Hellboy's childhood. Well, now it does kind of make me sad. Thinking what happens in the future, but I mean, that happens to all of us, doesn't it? We grow up, we have the hopefully fond memories of childhood, but things don't stay the same. They change. Not changes we're happy with a lot of the times, but it is what it is. Not much we can do about it. But hey, again, at least Hellboy had these nice little memories. That is nice. And I'll say this one more time. Art, fantastic. I gotta look up more drawings by Duncan. And yeah, that is Duncan, right? And I'm not sure how you pronounce that surname. But yes, if you're a Hellboy fan, I recommend you get this one if you can find it, because it is quite old, I think. From the early 2000s, perhaps. I'm not actually sure. For fuck's sakes. This thing keeps falling. I'm not sure from what year this was. Oh, let me just show you this too. Look at that. That is cool. I'm not sure. I know this is definitely not new, but I don't know what year it is from. I don't think it says inside. I just had a look before. Maybe in here, wait. No. Oh, wait. No. I can't see anything here either. Usually it'd be like copyrighted to year. But anyway, it's not new. You know what? How about I'll just leave the year here on screen when this came out. Oh, and maybe it's here. It's not here either. But yeah, I'll leave it on screen, and then you can see what year this came out. Yes, if you'd like to read a bit of Hellboy's childhood, this is a nice little story. It has fantastic art, and some fun little Hellboy moments. Him with smoking and his pancakes. And here we see a glimpse of his love for Lobster Johnson. So that's always nice. Yeah, so I hope you can find this one. Usually older Hellboy stuff are really hard to find, because they weren't printed in such a huge quantity. Yes, if you love Hellboy, totally recommend. I guess you want to give this a read, although if you don't know who Hellboy is, this might not be as appealing. And if you find this, it's a nice little story and it has a reference to Pinocchio. Alright, folks, so that is it. Now remember, collect what you're passionate about and share it on YouTube. Bye!